right, we're almost ready here. And let me know, guys, if you catch any differences, because I'm pretty sure with Jeremiah, you're going to catch some differences here. So just make note of anything that might be different. So, all right, we're about to get into Jeremiah chapter 7 and 9. Brother Joshua is going to be taking over from here whenever you're ready, brother.
Hear the word of Yahuwah, O Yehuda. Thus says Yahuwah Allah Yashra, correct your ways and your devices, and it will cause you to dwell in this place. Trust not in yourselves with lying words, for they shall not profit you at all, saying, it is the temple of Yahuwah, the temple of Yahuwah. You thoroughly correct your ways and your practices, and do indeed execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, and oppress not the stranger, orphan, widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, and go not after strange mighty ones to your hurt. Then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land which I gave to your fathers of old and forever. But seeing you have trusted in lying words, whereby you shall not be profited, and you murder and commit adultery, and steal and swear falsely, and burn incense to Baal, and have gone after strange mighty ones whom you know not, so that it is evil with you. Yet have you come and stood before me in the house which is called by my name. And you have said, we have refrained from doing all these abominations. Is my house which is called by my name a den of robbers in your eyes? And behold, I have seen it, says Yahuwah. But go to my place which is in Shiloh, where I caused my name to dwell before, because of the wickedness of my people Yasharal. And now, because you have done all these deeds, and I spoke to you, but you hearkened not to me, and I called you, but you answered not. Therefore I also will do to the house which is called by my name, in which you trust, and to the place which I give to you and to your fathers, as I did to Shiloh. And I will cast you out of my sight, as I cast away your brethren, all the seed of Ephraim. Therefore do not pray for this people, and do not intercede for them to be pitied. Yes, do not pray and do not approach me for them, for I will not hearken. Do you not see what they do in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Yerushalayim? The children gather wood, and their fathers kindle a fire, and their women knead dough and make cakes to the host of Shamayim. And they have poured out drink offerings to strange mighty ones, so that they might provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, says Yahuwah? Do they not themselves, that their faces may be ashamed? Therefore thus says Yahuwah, behold, my anger and wrath shall be poured out upon this place, and upon the men, and upon the cattle, and upon every tree of their field, and upon the fruits of the land, and it shall burn and not be quenched. Thus says Yahuwah, gather your whole burnt offerings with your grain offerings, and eat flesh. For I spoke not to your fathers, and commanded them not in the day that I brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim, concerning whole burnt offerings and offering. But I commanded them this thing, saying, hear my voice, and I will be your Allah, and you shall be my people, and walk in all my ways which I shall command you, that it may be well with you. But they hearkened not to me, and their ear gave no heed, but they walked in the imaginations of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward. From the day that their fathers went forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, even until this day, I sent to you all my servants, prophets, by day and early in the morning. Yes, I have sent, but they hearkened not to me, and their ear gave no heed, and they made their neck harder than their fathers. Therefore you shall speak this word to them. This is the nation that has not heeded the voice of Yahuwah, nor received correction. Truth has failed from their mouth. Cut off your hair and cast it away, and take up a lamentation on your lips, for Yahuwah has reprobated and rejected the generation that does these things. For the children of Yehuda have done evil before me, says Yahuwah. They have set their abominations in the house which is called by my name, to defile it. And they have built the altar of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters with fire, which I did not command them to do, nor did I design it in my heart. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when they shall no more say, the altar of Tophet and the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter, and they shall bury in Tophet for need of room. And the dead bodies of this people shall be for food to the birds of the sky and to the wild beasts of the air, and there shall be none to drive away. And I will destroy out of the cities of Yehuda and the streets of Yerushalayim, and the voice of them that make merry, and the voice of them that rejoice, the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, for the whole land shall become a desolation. Chapter 8. At that time, says Yahweh, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Yehuda, and the bones of his princes, and the bones of the Kahan, and the bones of the Kahanim, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Yerushalayim out of their graves, and they shall spread them out to the sun and the moon, and to all the stars, and to all the host of Shamayim, which they have loved, and which they have served, and after which they have walked, and to which they have held, and which they have worshipped. They shall not be mourned for, nor shall they be buried, but they shall be for an example on the face of the earth. Because they chose death rather than life, even to all the remnant that are left of that family, in every place where I shall drive them out. For thus says Yahweh, shall not he that falls arise, or he that turns back away, or he that turns away, shall he not turn back again? Why have my people turned away with a shameless revolting, and strengthened themselves in their willfulness, and refused to return? Hearken, I pray. Hearken, I pray, and hear. Will they not speak thus? There is no man that repents of his wickedness, saying, what have I done? The runner has failed from his course as a tired horse in his neighing. Even the stork in Shamayim knows her time. Also the turtle dove and wild swallow, the sparrows observe the times of the coming end. But this my people knows not the judgments of Yahweh. How will you say we are wise, and the Torah of Yahweh is with us? In vain had the scribes used a false pen. Wise men are ashamed and alarmed and taken, and rejected the word of Yahweh. What wisdom is there in them? Therefore will I give their wives to others, and their fields to new inheritors, and they shall gather their fruits, says Yahweh. Let's switch to Masoretic real quick. For they have healed the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, Shalom, shalom, when there is no shalom. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? No, they were not at all ashamed, nor could they blush. Therefore shall they fall among them that fall. In the time of their visitation they shall be cast down, says Yahweh. There are no grapes on the vines, and there are no figs on the fig trees, and the leaves have fallen off. Why do we sit still? Assemble yourselves and let us enter into the strong cities, and let us be cast out there. For Yahweh has cast us out, and made us drink water of gall, because we have sinned before him. We assembled for shalom, but there was no prosperity, for a time of healing, but there was no anxiety. But there was anxiety. We shall hear the neighing of his swift horses out of Dan. The whole land quaked at the sound of the neighing of his horses, and he shall come and devour the land and the fullness of it, city and them that dwell in it. For behold, I send forth against you deadly serpents which cannot be charmed, and they shall bite you mortally with the pain of your distressed heart. Behold, the sound of the cry of the daughter of my people from a land afar off. Is not Yahweh in Zion? Is there not a king there? Because they have provoked me with their graven images and with strange vanities. The summer is gone, and the harvest is past, and we are not saved. Breach of the daughter of my people, I have been saddened at my perplexity. Pangs have seized upon me as of a woman in travail. And there is no balm in Gilead, or is there no and is there no balm in Gilead, or is there no physician there? Why is not the healing of the daughter of my people taken place? Chapter 9. Who will give water to my head and a fountain of tears to my eyes? Then would I weep for this my people day and night, for the slain of the daughter of my people. Who would give me a most distant lodge in the wilderness, that I might leave my people and depart from them? For they all commit adultery, an assembly of treacherous men, and they have bent their tongue like a bow. Falsehood and not faithfulness have prevailed upon the earth. They have gone on from evil to evil, and they have not known me, says Yahweh. Beware each of his neighbor, and trust not in your brother, for everyone will surely supplant and every friend will walk craftily. Everyone will mock his friend. They will not speak truth. Their tongue has learned to speak falsehoods. They have committed iniquity. They cease not so as to return. There is usury upon usury and deceit upon deceit. They would not know me, says Yahweh. Therefore, thus says Yahweh, behold, I will try them with fire and prove them. For I will do thus because of the wickedness of the daughter of my people. Their tongue is a wounding arrow. The words of their mouth are deceitful. One speaks shalom to his neighbor, but in himself retains enmity. Shall I not punish them for these things, says Yahweh? And shall not my soul be avenged on such a people as this? Take up a lamentation for the mountains and a mournful dirge for the paths of the wilderness. For they are desolate from a lack of men. They heard not the sound of life from the birds of the sky, nor the cattle. They were amazed. They are gone. And I will remove the inhabitants of Jerusalem and make it a dwelling place of dragons. And I will utterly waste the cities of Yehudah so that they shall not be inhabited. Who is the wise man that he may understand this, and that has the word of the mouth of Yahweh to him? I will tell you why the land has been destroyed and has been ravaged by fire like a desert, so that no one passes through it. And Yahweh said to me, because they have forsaken my Torah, which I set before them, and have not hearkened to my voice, but went after the lusts of their evil heart, and after their idols, which their fathers taught them to worship. Therefore, thus says Yahweh, Eloah of Yasharal, behold, I will feed them with trouble and will cause them to drink water of gall. And I will scatter them among the nations, to them whom neither they nor their fathers knew. And I will send a sword upon them until I have consumed them with it. Thus says Yahweh, call the mourning women, and let them come, and send to the wise women, and let them utter their voice, and let them take a lamentation for you, and let your eyes pour down tears, and your eyelids drop water, for a voice of lamentation has been heard in Zion. How we have become wretched. We are greatly ashamed, for we have forsaken the land and have abandoned our tabernacles. Hear the word of Yahweh, you women, and let your ears receive the words of his mouth, and teach your daughters lamentation, and women her neighbor a dirge. For death has come up through your windows. It has entered into our land to destroy the infants outside and the young men from the streets, and the carcasses of the men shall be for an example on the face of the field of your land, like grass after the mower, and there shall be none to gather. Thus says Yahweh, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, and let not the strong man boast in his strength, and let not the rich man boast in his wealth. But let him that boasts boast in this, the understanding and knowing that I am Yahweh, that exercises mercy and judgment and righteousness upon the earth. For these things is my pleasure, says Yahweh. Behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh. I will visit upon the circumcised their uncircumcision, on Egypt, Edom, Edom on the children of Ammon, on the children of Moab, and everyone that shaves his face round about, even them that dwell in the wilderness, for all the goyim are uncircumcised in flesh, and all the house of Yasharal are uncircumcised in their heart. And that's it.
Interesting. So we got I noticed one thing that was weird as you were reading, and I forgot about this, is that for some reason the Septuagint is missing like the first verse of the chapter for some reason, unless it was added in there. It's very weird that the introduction to the chapter is not there. The word of Yahuwah that came to Jeremiah, yeah, that probably should be in there. So let me just see if they number it different. Maybe that's why it's not there. Let me see here. No, it definitely should be there. So that's just a note I took of verse 1 there. That the Septuagint doesn't have it. It's omitted there. Or it lacks it. Let's see. Go ahead.
I just have one parallel that I find interesting. I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but where in the end of chapter 8 it says, there will be no grapes on the vine, there will be no figs on the tree. And then my memory sent me back to Habakkuk, which it basically says the same thing. Where?
I think they're contemporaries. Yeah.
The fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vine, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though there be no sleep in the pen, and no cattle in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in Yahuwah. I will rejoice in Yahuwah, my Savior. It kind of brought me back to that, when I started hearing that.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. Yeah. So basically, these chapters are showing how apostate his people are at this point. I mean, mind you, at this point, if I'm not mistaken, if Jeremiah is in chronological order, they're already divorced at this point. The northern house is already divorced.
I think so.
Chapter 3 or 4 is how we have it today, traditionalized as chapter 3 and 4. Or my bad, chapter 3 is the chapter of divorce. So if we're already at chapter 7 and 8, and the scroll is in chronological order that way, then technically already the northern house is not even considered part of his people anymore. So I wonder if these chapters are solely to the southern house, or if they're to his people in general. Just a thought, because I kind of wonder. Even though, no, actually, yeah, it seems like it's pointed to the house of Judah, because verse 15 is talking about, just as I cast away your brothers, all the seed of Ephraim. Yeah. Yeah. So it seems to be very, very, the audience seems to be the southern house of Judah, Benjamin, and some of Levi. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Verse 18 that Brother Joshua read here, obviously the famous verse here. They kindle the fire, the women knead the dough, and they bake cakes to, your version might say, the Queen of Heaven. The Septuagint actually just lumps all the host of heaven up and says that these Israelites were baking cakes not just for the Queen of Heaven, but for basically all the false gods of the nations, you could say. And they have poured out drink offerings to strange gods that they might provoke me to anger. So basically, his people became so apostate, they started worshiping the gods of the nations, pretty much is what was happening. According to the Septuagint, they were, worshiping the host of heaven, the angels, probably fallen angels, if you want my opinion. Let's see here. Let's see here. My wrath be poured out, and then you speak to your father's command. I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Now,
Doug, is it Queen of Heaven, Mother Nature?
Yeah, you could say it's the same person. I think the Gnostics have stylized her as Mother Earth or Mother Nature, but back then the Queen of Heaven would have been Ishtar, Isis, Semiramis, basically every name you could think of under the sun for the different countries that worshipped Nimrod's wife slash mother. She was known by many different names, the Aphrodite to Rome, Diana to the Ephesians, to Ephesus. So yeah, it's the same person. It's pretty much the same person, but different mythologies, different religions worship her. Even the Hindus today worship her as, I think, I guess you would say Shiva. She would probably be as Shiva in the Hindus. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any other pagan religions, what they would worship her as. Well, of course, the Catholic Church worships her as Mary. They think they're praying to Mary. They're not praying to Mary. They're praying to her. So yeah, that's pretty much who the Queen of Heaven is. In modern America, people are allowing, I think unwillingly, I should add unwillingly, not willingly, but ignorantly, they're allowing their children to idolize her as Wonder Woman, not realizing where Wonder Woman comes from and the fact that they don't try to hide it. Her first name is Diana, Prince. So he's literally named after Diana of the Ephesians. So it's not like they're trying to hide it too much in Marvel or DC, whatever the right company is there, or whatever comics it is. DC is not trying to hide it. Matter of fact, you can look this up on YouTube for yourself. Don't take my word for it. The guy who made the comics for DC even admits he based a lot of the characters off of Greek and Roman gods. He does not hide this. So just FYI, that's why I would not, I would definitely, if I allowed my children to hypothetically watch those type of movies, I would be with them, showing them what that really is and that they should not emulate those characters whatsoever, and why that is. If you are going to watch it critically, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, but anyway, all these characters go back to the Queen of Heaven. That was the point I guess I was trying to make there. So all of them, they're just different names for the same woman. So anyway, that you can do your own research to see, just to test what I'm saying, to make sure that what I'm saying is true. If you don't believe me, you can research it for yourself. But yeah, the information's out there about that. So let's see here. Talk about the Lamentation, the altar Topheth. Now, this is interesting. Verse 31, I wanted to touch on just really quick, because Valley of Topheth is talking about, if I'm not mistaken, this is the Valley of Hanem or Ben Hanem, where if it's kind of interesting, it ties into Gehenna, because Gehenna, the reason Yahuwah gave the name Gehenna to the lake of fire was actually facetiously, pointing to those that did that disgusting child sacrifice, to say, well, I'm going to call my lake of fire Gehenna, because I'm going to be putting you in there. All you that sacrifice children, all you that burn them in the valley of Ben Hinnom, well, guess what? You're going to be burning in my valley, in my lake of fire. And I believe it was a very derogatory way of Yahuwah saying, well, guess what? You're getting paid back. I repay you according to your works. Mm-hmm. You want to burn innocent children? Well, I'm going to burn you for your actual sins. And that's a whole historical tale of how Gehenna and the Valley of Hanem or Ben Hinnom connects with one another. But it's pretty interesting. The altar of Topheth was up there. They would basically burn children of Molech. It's pretty much what they were doing. That's why Baal is mentioned in this chapter and all that. It's interesting. This kind of ties in with Revelations in verse 33. The dead bodies of the people shall be food for the birds of the sky. You see a lot of that in end times prophecy, where it talks about he's giving the heathen, the dead heathen, as like food to vultures and beasts of the field and all that. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that in Revelations. I will destroy out of the cities of Yehuda and the streets of Jerusalem the voice of them that make merry, the voice of them that rejoice, the voice of the bridegroom, the voice of the bride, for the whole land shall become a desolation. So another parallel with Revelations there, voice of the bridegroom and the bride. I think chapter 8 was pretty much self-explanatory. I don't remember anything that really stood out. See here. Oh, what I did want to touch on those verse 8. I know a lot of people have different opinions on what Jeremiah 8:8 is referring to. I personally believe the scribes he's talking about, it's a prophecy that later on you would have these scribes that they claim to be wise, they claim to have the Torah, they claim to have his law, but yet they've used the pen unrighteously, and they've distorted his word physically. And I think all of you could, especially you guys that have been visiting us as visitors and listening to our studies week after week, I think you know whom I believe this verse is referring to. I am very, very, very convinced at this point that this is a prophecy about the Mazarites, in my opinion. I believe this was foreshadowing what the Mazarites would do around the time period of 700 to 1000 AD, 7th century to 10th century AD. That they would so manipulate the messianic prophecies, so many things in the Bible, where today the Old Testament we have in most of our Bibles today is nothing. It's pales in comparison to the original Septuagint that the apostles used and Yahusha used in his day when he was on the earth. So I personally believe Jeremiah 8:8 is talking about the Mazarites, in my opinion. But anyway, see here. What I find interesting too, it kind of reminds me of in the Masoretic text. What's interesting here, though, is that deadly serpents, if you look at the Hebrew word for serpent, if I'm not mistaken, this is referring to the Nakash, or I guess you'd say Nakashim, since it's like plural. It's supposed to be plural, which I find interesting because the Nakash in Genesis is Satan. Now, Nakash, if you really look at the root word and everything, it means shining one, diviner, seducer. So pretty much Yahuwah could even be talking about he sent seraphim angels to punish them, which you see in the book of Numbers. If you actually look at the word serpent, I think is what, Numbers chapter 6, Mom, or 7, where it talks about the fiery serpents. Those are seraphim in the Hebrew. So it seems like a lot of the times Yahuwah, whether righteous seraphim or wicked seraphim, he would send seraphim to punish his people. And whenever they would sin, he would send seraphim against them. And it's kind of an interesting implication because the fact that I believe, according to canonical and extra canonical literature that agrees with one another, that Satan was a seraphim type of angel, not a cherubim. And one of the sisters in our fellowship, Sister Josie, agrees with me also about that. Just when you look at the actual, in original Hebrew, every time it's mentioning, a lot of times Nakash is coupled with seraph. it definitely seems to hint that Satan was that type of classification of a messenger, not a cherub. And that's a whole nother can of worms with how the Masoretes have messed with Ezekiel 28. But anyway, but I just thought it was interesting that this same word from Genesis 3, Nakash, is there in Jeremiah 8:17, and is also there in the book of Numbers when it talks about the serpents he sent to bite them. So a lot of times we look at that word in the English, serpent, and bite them, and we're thinking about these little snakes that are biting them in the ankles. I don't think that's what really happened. I believe he was sending possibly righteous seraphim angels to punish them. And so anyway, so that's just something I thought would be important to mention. Is there not a king there? They have provoked me with their graven images, their strong vanities. I thought this last verse was interesting, verse 20. The summer is gone, harvest is past, we are not saved. What I couldn't just help to think about is, remember how Yahushua refers to the end of the age with the parable of the fig tree and all, and you know how he says, like, he says, when the leaves are ripe, summer is what? Near. So I wonder if Yahushua's quoting from Jeremiah here and trying to relate this to his Hebrew audience here, because he's a Hebrew himself, that basically, okay, when you understand the harvest is about to come, the last harvest of the year, that's going to be the time of my coming. That's really what he's saying to them. So to understand Hebrew culture, to understand what he's actually saying when he's talking about the parable of the fig tree, he's talking about, you know, summer is near, that's going to be near the time of my coming. Okay. So, and again, this is why Paul says in 1 Thessalonians, what is it, chapter 4 or 5, he talks about concerning seasons, my brothers, I would will that you're not ignorant. Seasons there obviously is referring to the Moedim. So the Israelites of that time period understood that Yahushua's return had to coincide with the Moedim. He's not going to return on a day that's not a Moedim. He's just not. Yahuwah does everything around his appointed times. He's not going to have his son return when it's not a Moedim. So just something to think about, because I know a lot of people are deceived by the imminent rapture, and the rapture can happen at any moment. But if you really look at scripture, the whole counsel of scripture, there's a reason why the pre-trib is not biblical. You can't have an imminent rapture. It has to happen. It has to coincide with the feasts. Okay. Number one. Number two, Yahushua tells you when it happens. It's not a mystery. He tells you when it happens. In Matthew 24:31. So, or my bad, I think it's Matthew 24:29, chapter 24, verse 29. So anyway, moving on. So I'm trying to refrain myself from these rabbit trails here, but anyway, you see that it's talking about basically the last chapter Brother Joshua read in chapter 9 is talking about the destruction of Jerusalem because of their sins. They're going to be, spread abroad across the Gentiles. They're going to be dispersed. A lot, and I noticed a lot of language about, don't revile your neighbor, the poor, the widow, constantly being reiterated here. That was probably their biggest problem, was the poor, the widow, and the fatherless of their own people. They were not taken care of. A lot of times we read our own Christian tradition into the text, and we're generalizing verses like that. And we're thinking that it's talking about like poor in general or widows. No, it's not. You got to understand it, in that historical context, especially, everyone that's in that land is pretty much of Israel, pretty much. I mean, yeah, you got people passing by, you got Gentiles passing by unconverted, but for the most part, the majority of the people living in that land are in relationship with the Father. So they're Israelites. So when he's talking about your neighbor, he's not talking about a random non-believer that lives next to them. He's talking about their brother, their sister. Okay. So when we read verses like that, we got to keep in mind what scripture defines as our neighbor, not what society defines as our neighbor. Got to keep in context with that. And it's talking about lies and deceit, the tongue. This kind of reminds me of the book of Yaqub, the book of James, where the tongue is a very deceitful member of our body. In these couple of chapters, there's a lot about lamentations, lamenting for his people. What I found interesting too was it talked about, I will remove them. He's going to remove his people from Jerusalem and make Jerusalem a dwelling place of dragons. So I don't know if you guys had any thoughts, but I had two different types of way I could interpret that. Either it's talking about literal dragons, which I have no problem with that because I understand dragons are real creatures. They're not mythological. So I have no problem with understanding that could be very literal. Or in other cultures, sometimes the seraphim messengers, especially in Ethiopian Ge'ez language, sometimes they called the seraphim dragons or serpents. So I think the Septuagint would probably more side with it being literal dragons, like fire-breathing dragons, if I'm not mistaken. Drakon. Yeah, so definitely more sides with the more literal interpretation. Let me just look into the Hebrew of this. I'm just curious what the Masoretic Hebrew has to say here. That's interesting. Oh, here we go. Den of dragons. Okay. Tanim. No, it's talking about a literal dragon. Yeah. That's interesting. Dragon or dinosaur. Yeah. Oh, funny enough, I don't want this to go into a whole another rabbit trail, but what's interesting to note is that dinosaurs were not originally called dinosaurs. If you go to a 1800 Merriam-Webster dictionary, the word dinosaur was originally dragon. They were originally called dragons. They were not called dinosaurs. So just know this, brothers and sisters, when an atheist comes to you and says, oh, well, dinosaurs are not in the Bible, how do you fit that into the Bible? I don't have to fit it into the Bible. Your word dinosaur is only as old as the 1900s, okay? Okay, the fact of the matter is they originally were called dragons, and you will find dragons being mentioned in the Bible everywhere, okay? For example, Leviathan is a type of dragon. It's even according to tradition, they would consider it a sea dragon, like a sea monster, a sea dragon. So there's tons of references of dragons being real in the Bible as a real creature. So just as a good apologetics for atheists, when you come in contact with atheists, they can't use that as an excuse to not believe in the Bible. Because I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the word dinosaur is a very new word. So trying to use that against a Bible, by the way, most older decent Bibles are from the 1600s. That word would have not even been created yet, the word dinosaur, just saying. So, okay. But anyway, I think that's all I wanted to touch on. I think we can move to the next portion here. Let's see here. So let's see what the next reading we have. I think, what is it, Mom? The last reading we have, what is it, Matthew 19 or something, if I'm not mistaken?
It was a Mark. For some reason I thought.
Let me just look at the picture here. I have the screenshot on my phone. So I can, oh, my bad. Brother Joshua has his hand up. Go ahead.
Verse 17, starting in verse 16, though, what you just read, where it says a snorting. Let me go to Uh, We shall hear the neighing of his swift horses out of Dan. The whole land quaked at the sound of the neighing of his horses, and he shall come and devour the land and the fullness of it, the city and them that dwell in it. For behold, I send forth against you deadly serpents, which cannot be charmed, and they shall bite you. The fact that it's talking about horses coming out of Dan and then serpents, I'm almost wondering if that is a fulfillment or a partial fulfillment of Genesis 49,
Possibly.
16 and 17. It says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Yasharal, and let Dan be a serpent in the way, besetting the path, biting the heel of the horse, and the rider shall fall backward, waiting for the salvation of Yahuwah.
Ah, it's very possible.
Both words are the same in the Greek and the Hebrew. Greek, it's ophis, and Hebrew is nephesh.
Hmm. Yeah, I would definitely say that's a literal serpent in that context. It would seem like, yeah, that makes sense, and that it would definitely seem like it's a partial fulfillment of that prophecy about the tribe of Dan. Definitely seems like it hints to that. The fact that they're coming from the land of Dan and biting the heel of the Israelites of most likely the southern tribe. It seems like this attack is focused on the southern house. Let's see here. So what? So that was chapter 9, verse 16, or was it?
Really, I just noticed this, but it's 49, 16, and 17. And what's interesting is that, and while I know that there was not chapters numberings when these were originally written, it's definitely weird that it's chapter 49, 16, and 17, verse 16 and 17, that parallels with Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 16 and 17. So both chapters, it's verse 16 and 17.
I would say that's a sign of authenticity. I know some people don't go by that rule, but I do. I think that's a sign of inspiration or authenticity, however you want to word it. I don't think man would go to the trouble to match it up like that, where there's a similar context of two completely different books that are versed exactly the same number of verses. I don't know. That seems like a little bit of heavenly inspiration there. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but that kind of seems like a sign of inspiration there. See here. So yeah, it's interesting though. What's kind of interesting is seems like you still get this bad connotation about Dan though in that prophecy. Because it's like, who is really, if you go way back to Genesis 3, who's supposed to be biting the heel? Spiritually, Satan. It's like, it's a weird, like, parallel. It's like weird, like, it's like Dan's doing something wicked that Yahuwah is like giving a prophecy of like liking that tribe similar to the actions of Satan. I understand it's a literal biting versus a spiritual biting, but it's weird. It's like why that type of action that he's gonna give for Dan. It's just, I don't know. To me, I wonder if there's more behind that prophecy we don't know about. I wondered historically if there's more behind that prophecy. If Dan became so apostate that they were, they were, worshiping Satan at one time. I just kind of wonder. I don't know. This is just hypotheticals, just theories, but I kind of wonder. I don't know, because you see other traditions of how King Manasseh led Judah supposedly into the worship of Satan, supposedly. So who knows? I mean, so that's something I want to research and look more into before I form an opinion on. But It's definitely interesting prophecy that could have been partially fulfilled in Jeremiah 8 in a literal sense. The serpents biting their heels and the horses coming from Dan. Definitely seems to fit that in Genesis 49:17. Yeah, definitely seems to fit it. All right, so let me go to my Telegram because I really have had to improvise here. I had a little bit of water damage happen to my laptop this week, so I've had to kind of improvise here on looking at the trying to keep track of what portions we're reading this week. Let me see here. I just had it too. Where the heck is it? I put it in. Oh, I know where I put it in. It was in the messenger. See here. Okay, so we did Leviticus 68, Jeremiah 7, 8, and 9. Yeah, we got Matthew 9 next.
Okay.
It looks like the Zav portion. All right. Yeah. And looks like we'll be going into a different Brit Hadashah book for next week. But yeah, so Matthew 9. So whoever wants to read Matthew 9, feel free. If any new reader wants to read, feel free. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm picking the same people or picking favorites. So if anyone else wants to read, please let me know. I know we got Sadia here, Sister Marissa, Sally, Alyssa. We got Turbo also here. So if anyone new wants to read, please let me know. Feel free to volunteer.
I would love to, but I can't.
Aw.
Soon I will. Soon I will. Brother.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah, sis. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait for that day.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so going once, twice. What about you, Brother Dennis? I know you haven't read today. You feel like reading?
You want to rest.
I'm trying to clear my throat.
Oh, all right. All right, Mom, since you volunteered, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Chapter 9.
As long as there's no one else that wants to.
No,
Okay.
it seems like you're free to go.
Okay, Matthew chapter 9. Yahusha stepped into a boat, crossed over, and came to his own town. Some men brought to him a paralytic lying on a mat. When Yahusha saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Take heart, son, your sins are forgiven." At this, some of the teachers of the law said to him, "This fellow is blaspheming." Knowing their thoughts, Yahusha said, "Why do you entertain evil thoughts in your hearts? Which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Rise, get up, and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," then he said to the paralytic, "Get up, take your mat, and go home." And the man got up and went home. When the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe, and they praised Yahuwah, who had given such authority to men. As Yahusha went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. While Yahusha was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Yahusha said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." One second. Okay, then John's disciples came and asked him, "How is it that we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Yahusha answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them. The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them. Then they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. While he was saying this, a ruler came and knelt before him and said, "My daughter has just died, but come and put your hand on her, and she will live." Yahusha got up and went with him, and so did his disciples. Just then, a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge, or as we know, the tassels of his cloak. She said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." Yahusha turned and saw her. "Take heart, daughter," he said. "Your faith has healed you." And the woman was healed from that moment. When Yahusha entered the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the and the noisy crowd, he said, "Go away, the girl is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took the girl by the hand, and she got up. News of this spread through all that region. As Yahusha went on from there, 2 blind men followed him, calling out, "Have mercy on us, son of David." When he had gone indoors, the blind men came to him, and he asked them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" "Yes, Master," they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, will it be done to you?" And their sight was restored. Yahusha warned them sternly, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him all over that region.
Yes means no.
And he's probably shaking his head. Okay. While they were going out, a man who was demon-possessed and could not talk was brought to Yahusha. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been dumb spoke. The crowd was amazed and said, "Nothing like this has ever been done here in Yisrael." But the Pharisees said, "It is by the prince of demons that he drives out demons." Yahusha went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but workers are few. Ask the master of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field."
Wow, it's a short chapter.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
So I couldn't help but notice our readings today connected with Jeremiah to Matthew here, where the scribes are being talked about in 8 verse 8, and now you have these type of scribes acting no better. They're talking about Yahusha blasphemes because he said your sins are forgiven. Now, to understand this, though, if Yahusha, I'm going to bear with me, guys, I'm playing devil's advocate here, okay? If Yahusha is a mortal man, right, can he forgive sins? According to Torah, does a mortal human being have the authority to forgive your sins? No, he doesn't. So that means he can't just be a regular mortal human being. So the problem with the Pharisees is they didn't even believe he was born of a virgin. They believed he was a normal mortal man. So they believe that a normal mortal man is claiming to be one with the Father, has authority to forgive sins and all this. So you got to understand why they're making this assumption that he's blaspheming. That's the point I'm trying to make. If he's a mortal man and he says, I can forgive your sins, and that your sins are forgiven, meaning all your sins are forgiven, that you ever sinned against someone else, that is blasphemy. He cannot do that. Now, the Creator can do that. So we have two options here as believers in the Messiah. We can either say that he's a mortal man and that he's just someone Yahuwah used to deliver us, which then means that you would have to side with the Pharisees on their argument here, or we can believe that he is Yahuwah in the flesh and that the Pharisees are misunderstanding who he is. So I think that latter understanding makes perfect sense why the Pharisees just couldn't see it. They kept looking at him as a normal mortal human being.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand that he is the Creator in human flesh. And so he's saying the Son of Man has authority to forgive sins. Yes, the Son of Man does. If you read certain literature, you'll understand why the Son of Man does. Because the Son of Man in certain literature is equated with the Ancient of Days. Okay, so the Ancient of Days, obviously the Most High, has authority to forgive sins. So that's what Yahushua is really saying. And that's why I say to people that say that he never claimed to be the Father, I would say, au contraire, he claimed to be the Father all the time. You just don't recognize it. He claimed to be the Father every time. For him to say, I and my Father are one.
Right.
In Hebrew theology, he is literally equaling himself with the Father, making himself equal. By him saying, I am the only begotten of the Father, he is saying that what the Father is, I am. Like everything that Yahuwah is, he is, by saying he is begotten of him. Like, for example, if I beget a son, that son is a splitting image of me. He is everything I am. So when he says, I am the only begotten of the Father, that is what he's really saying. So to fully understand what Yahushua was claiming, he was saying he was the Almighty all the time. All the time. And because the Pharisees' understanding was so blinded, they thought he was committing blasphemy. And that's what Matthew 9 is talking about here, saying, you commit blasphemy. You as a man forgiving sin? So, and that's why it says, he saw evil things in their heart. Yep. Verse 6 right there. You may know that the Son of Man, Ha Ben Adam, has authority in the earth to forgive sins. So, yep. And then we have the tax collector, Matthew, and all that. I require mercy, not sacrifice. By the way, it's interesting. He tells the Pharisees, he's basically being nice to them, because he could just outright say, you are really ignorant, you're stupid, you don't know what the heck you're talking about, you don't know the scriptures, you need to go learn it. But he's nice enough to say, go learn what this says. I require mercy, not sacrifice. So what Yahushua is talking about is, you worry about the letter of the law, but yet the heart of the law you just ignore. You ignore the poor, the fatherless, the widow. You worry about the little things of the temple, like the cumin and this and that and the tithing, but yet you're forgetting about the weightier matters. You're forgetting about judgment and mercy. So that's what Yahushua is getting into there. And then it says, and then obviously the tradition of fasting. We see a lot of this today in Christianity. You'll see this in certain denominations. Why are you not fasting on this day? That is not even commanded to be fasting in the scripture, by the way, because usually they'll say, they'll pick a random day out of the year to fast on. They'll be like, oh, this is our legalistic day to fast on. You better fast on this day, this traditional day we picked out that the Creator did not pick out. In certain ways, Christianity is no different than the Pharisees in certain ways with their legalism. They're adding to the Torah. That's why Yahushua said to them, they'll fast when I'm not with them. When my bride doesn't have me with them, yeah, they'll fast then when I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my mom already touched on the tassels, the tzitzis. My mom already talked about that. The wine skins and new wine.
That's interesting, isn't it?
That has always been a verse I've always been confused by. Even to this day, I have a decent understanding on it, but it's still like, it seems like very spiritual and allegorical when he's talking about the wineskins. It's like
yeah.
What they put new wine in old wineskins, lest the wineskins burst and the wine is spilled and the wineskins are destroyed, but they put new wine in new wineskins and both are preserved. So it's like, I don't know, to me, the way it's worded in the English, it's like a little confusing. But I think what he's referring to is our spiritual state. We need to become renewed. I think he's getting to that. I think that's what he's trying to point to. I could be wrong, but I've always been confused by that verse. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've always been
me too.
confused about that verse. So, and then obviously the healing of the man's daughter here. Okay. He touch his clothes, I shall be healed. Okay, it's already talked about that. All right. And I notice what's interesting here is some of these people are understanding he's the Messiah at this point because they're saying, have pity on us, O son of David. So they kind of realize that he is that descendant of David, the branch. It seems like some of them actually realize this, that Yahushua is who he says he is. So come to the house as we come near to him. Okay. We're saying to him, yes, our master, let it be done to you. See that no man will know it. They had a demon upon him when the demon went forth. But the Pharisees were saying, by the prince of demons, he cast out demons. So you got to understand the Pharisees. They held to some weird beliefs. So they believed that the devil was prince of devils or prince of unclean spirits, which, by the way, no legitimate book of scripture mentions that the devil is prince of demons. This is like completely conjecture on I guess, Talmudic belief system. The only book that even hints at this is the heretical Book of Jubilees. So, I mean, that should tell you something about that belief system. But anyway, so this is something that the Pharisees believed in. Yahushua never said it was correct, by the way. Yahushua kind of just tries to bring the point home. Well, if Satan is casting out his own kingdom, you're going to have a kingdom divided against itself. So, but anyway, so I don't think that's this chapter. I think that's a different Good News account because it jumps to another topic in the next verse. Yeah. But he said to his disciples, the harvest great, laborers are few. So he's talking about the harvest as, in the essence, I guess you could say Yahushua's allegorically here, the end of the chapter, referring to the harvest as spreading the Besorah, which is kind of interesting. He's like using the allegory that, okay, the workers, the farmers are few, but the harvest is plentiful, meaning the crops of the world is plentiful, the wheat is plentiful. So I find that interesting too. So What's also interesting, though, is he uses the harvest in another place in Matthew to describe the end of the world. So that's what confuses me sometimes a little bit, is he likes to use the same analogies for two different things. So sometimes he confuses me, because in Matthew 13, he uses that same word harvest for the actual end of the age. So it's sometimes a little confusing when Yahusha does that. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay. So the harvest could be referring to spreading the good news and the end of the age. So that's
because in one of the good news accounts, I remember the disciples were all confused about the parable of the sower. And then he breaks it down. He's like, okay, listen. He says, the field is the world. And that's the allegory that he's using.
You're referring to Matthew 13. So
parable of the sower.
Yeah, and notice he does not explain this in front of the crowds.
No.
This is something we miss here. So Yahusha did not explain his parables to everyone. He did choose certain individuals to tell the secrets of the kingdom to. Not everyone was worthy for him to tell. So notice he says in verse 36, he left the crowds, so he left the majority of the people, and came to the house, and his disciples came to him, and they were saying to him, explain to us that parable, the tares of the field. He answered and said to them, he who sowed the tube seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, but the tube seed is the children of the kingdom, and the tares are the children of the evil one. The enemy who sowed them is Satan, but the harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. And that's something interesting, isn't it? Because when you think of a reaper, it's always a bad connotation, right? Because we're so desensitized in this world. The grim reaper, this evil angel death, and all of that. But if you look at it, Yahushua is saying his angels are the reapers. So the reapers is actually good connotation. It's in the context of this parable, he's calling the good angels the reapers, not the fallen angels. But see, because we've been trained by this whole Halloween nonsense, the Grim Reaper.
I don't think of that about that word, because I grew up amongst horror.
No, I know, but
I know what the word.
But I know my generation would look at that word reaper and all automatically, psychologically, would go back to that nonsense.
Yeah, that's true.
And I wonder if the devil did that on purpose so that he would confuse us. But anyway, I find that interesting. So Yahusha's messengers are called the reapers. And then talks about the tares are, and this is very key. We were talking about this earlier. I was kind of making light and joke about the pre-trib, how the pre-trib is not possible. This verse destroys it right here, along with Matthew 24:29 also. But this verse right here in Matthew 13:40, it says, therefore, just as the tares, the wicked, the children of the devil, are gathered and burned in the fire, so will be at the end of this world. And then if you go further down, it says that the tares are taken first and are put into the fire.
Right.
So you can't have the catching away or arpazo or rapture, or whatever you want to call it, happen before the tares are taken away. So just something to think about. So anyway. All right, so I think that's it for today's study. I know it's kind of brief. Oh, go ahead, Brother Joshua. I don't want to leave out letting you get a chance to speak. Go ahead.
With Satan casting out Satan, or Satan can't cast out Satan, with the fact that you have Christian deliverance ministries supposedly casting out spirits, two things come to mind. With Yahuwah allowing a great delusion, I wonder if he's commanded those spirits that some of them have to leave at the false name to allow that great delusion, or if 2, they're not even leaving, period, and they're just deceiving people into them leaving. Just a thought.
Both options are extremely plausible. I can't really pick one or the other at this moment in time because obviously I'm not infinite knowing. I don't know who his will is in the matter of that. Whether he actually allows people that are ignorant of the false name and to literally cast out devils, I have no idea. But I think it's very plausible either way that he could be actually sending them out to make people think that they're in the truth, and because they don't have the love of the truth, he's actually giving them into that delusion that they actually believe they're in the truth. Or that, you know, that these demons, like you said, the other option is these demons are making people think they left, but they're they're kind of just sitting dormant in the person's body, not really making themselves obvious. It's kind of like, I remember this ex-Satanist was mentioning it. He was talking about how, you know, you'll do all these weird things. You'll send people over these spirit, because some people, when they want to get rid of spirits, they'll send Wiccans over. And they'll think, oh, the Wiccan got it out of our house, or they, you know, the maze. What mom is that guy Maniscalco? What type of belief system is his wife, where she puts like all these weird?
Well, she's like Jewish mystic.
Yeah, so you got like Jewish mystics believe they can just put some weird candles in there and cast out spirits. So it's kind of like it's kind of similar to this topic where, you know, the spirits will actually let you believe you're casting them out. They're like you're starting to use wicked devices to cast them out too, like that. They'll trick you, make you think you actually got them out of your home. Like you see like Kabbalistic people using these weird occultic avenues to get ghosts out of their home and all that. So that's what came to mind, is that even non-Christians who are like Wiccans and stuff like that, I could see Yahuwah allowing them to think, oh yeah, the demon left, when the demon's probably, you know, still in the corner in the room somewhere, just, you know.
I think that they get pleasure from tricking people. I say that because of the roommate that I had, who was an ex witch that came into me, or came with me into the name. Like he found Yahuwah led him to the name around the same time that he led me to the name, but he was an ex witch in a coven, and he would claim that they would mock and mockingly, they would take pleasure in mocking people and getting them to believe certain things that weren't true. They thought that was pretty funny, in a sick, twisted way.
Yeah, so I could definitely see what you brought up as legitimate. Definitely, and I'm not taking away from the idea that Yahuwah could honor someone in that, you know, he could have mercy on a Christian when they're trying to cast out a demon from someone that's been afflicted. I've heard stories even from Darianel when he was in Christianity, how the Father had mercy on him to cast out a demon out of a woman that was being afflicted. So I think it all depends on the circumstance and where the person is on their walk with the Father. If they're really walking with the Father or not, would definitely be the question.
That I've been in a lot of deliverance circles where people were supposedly getting delivered left and right, like hundreds of people getting delivered from spirits. Jeff brought up a good point one time, and I really can't say yes or no. I can only put my thoughts on it. And my thoughts would be more along the lines of what Jeff said. If all these people are supposedly getting deliverance, but it's not leading any one of them into the truth. It's not leading any one of them into Torah obedience, but rather most of them, it's leading them into, like, for example, the deliverance minister that I talked to in Christianity said, I have no need for Torah because I've cast out hundreds and hundreds of demons and seen thousands of people delivered, and I wasn't using the name, I wasn't keeping Torah. So this has actually led him farther away from Torah. So that's why I move more along the lines of it being a delusion, but I can't say yes or no.
Yeah, it could also be pride on a person's part to even claim that. If they cast it out, let's say hypothetically speaking, Yahuwah honored their heart at the moment that they cast all the demons out, and Yahuwah actually did it for them, but they're being prideful, like you're saying, and not wanting to go to Torah. You're actually spitting in Yahuwah's face and saying, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. I want to live my life the way I want to live it, even though you've given me the power to cast out devils and all that. So even if they did do it by Yahuwah, guess what? They're spitting in Yahuwah's face to say that. At the minimum, they're saying, oh, well, I don't need to keep your commandments, even though you gave me the power to cast out devils. That's what really is going on there. It's the flesh, it's the pride at the minimum. It's not allowing them to come to the truth, or they don't want to come to the truth. And I see that a lot, but the concept of I don't need to go into Torah because I have the power. First of all, I think they're under a false understanding of what's the gifts of the Spirit don't supersede your walk with the Creator. And I think this is the biggest problem. You see it in the Pentecostal movement. They focus solely, and I'm pretty sure you've seen this too in your own Christian upbringing, they focus so much on gifts of the Spirit that it almost supersedes their walk with the Creator. It supersedes relationship with Abba. They don't even care. They probably don't pray that much. They just, oh, let me cast out a devil. Let me do this, do that. Like, it's all works. It's all like, and I think this is why Yahusha says to people in Matthew 7, on that day, he's going to say, I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you. You did all this for me. Okay, great. Even if they knew the true character of him, right? And, they knew a decent amount of scripture, knew his character and all that, but there's no relationship there. There's no intimacy. It's all head knowledge. And it's all, well, I did all this stuff for you. I got burned at the stake for you. I did this, I did that, like all works. And he's like, get away from me, you worker of lawlessness, like all these legalistic works, being an evangelist and doing all that, but forsaking Torah. He's not going to care. He's not going to care at all. He's going to be like, well, guess what? I don't know you. You did all these things, great, but I don't know you. I don't know who you are. And I think that's the scariest thing in that verse, is that it's not people that are atheists, because that's how we've been taught to look at that verse in Christianity, that it's talking about non-believers. No, it's talking about believers that are doing works in his authority, doing works for him, but have no relationship with him, have no intimacy with him in context. It's like, oh, I did this. I cast out 3,000 demons. I led 3,000 to you. How certain people in the Baptist, I'm not saying all people in the Baptist church do this, but certain Baptists will be like, I won 3,000 souls for Christ. Yeah. And it's all pride. And, go ahead, Brother Joshua.
These people that appear to him and say, did I not do this? Did I not do that? And it's just my own opinion, but I don't think that these people are really, the people that are appearing to him and saying that, I don't think that they're really even doing what they think that they're doing. Just because you have the sons of Sceva who are trying to cast out, saying we cast you out in the name of the Yahusha that Paul preaches, and they all didn't know him, and they got trampled over. They got So
Yeah.
people come into him, did we not do this? Did we not do that? He never says, yeah, you did, but
Yeah.
not his response. I think I don't really doing what they think they're doing.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. It's true. Because you got the world doing those same type of works, really. Maybe not casting out devils, but they're doing feeding the poor, they're doing this, they're doing that. And they're not going to get in the kingdom just because they're doing those things.
Mhm.
If they don't know him, they don't know him.
If
I
you, and if
mean,
you, the spirit is not going to listen to a single thing that you have to say.
yeah.
They look at you like, who the heck are you? I don't have to listen to you.
Yep. Yep. And they said that to the disciples even at first, because they're like, who the heck are you? Or there was one instance where I think it was like, I know Paul, but I don't know you.
The sons
And it
of
was, yeah. Yeah. So there's tons of times where these spirits, if Yahushua hasn't given you that authority yet, you better hold off, because
Yeah.
those spirits are nothing to play with, especially when you realize what those spirits are. Realistically, what they are, what are they, the ruach of? They're nothing to play with. You're messing with outer body spirits of the giants. Okay, so you better chill out. If you're a baby in the walk and Yahushua hasn't given you that authority yet, you might want to hold off, because they're not going to listen to you. They're going to be like, who are you? Who are you to cast us out? Before we end, I noticed Sister Sadia has been very patient. I just want to get to her, and then we're going to close up the study for today. Go ahead, sis.
Okay. What you read, or I think your mom read, I think it was in Samuel, about lying and talking false, and how Yahuwah wasn't very pleased with that. So I wanted you to expound on that, on the, like, when you were, I think you were reading it, right? About
Yeah,
false tongue. And
yeah,
I just, I think people do that all the time. And I have myself, and I was praying when you were reading. I said, Father, remove that from me and my family, as far as, east is to the west. But I think people take that very lightly, and it's not gonna let you get into the gate.
yeah. So false tongues would be being dishonest, deceitful, bearing false witness is the most basic understanding of that. But also when James talks about tongues, he's, in a general sense, he's talking about slandering people. He's talking about gossip. He's talking about not just that, but getting angry at your brother and sister without a reason. And you can find this in other places. In Matthew 5, it talks about, Yahushua says, you're liable to the lake of fire if you're angry or in wrath at your brother or sister without reason. Now, a lot of people don't realize that in the verse it says without a reason. Okay. So is it generally a sin to get mad at your brother and sister? No, it's not, in general. But if you have no reason and you have an unrighteous anger at them, yes, it's a sin. And I'll go that real quick to expound upon that in Matthew 5. A lot of translators, and this is my pet peeve about translators here, they love to use these manuscripts that omit certain words, and it kind of ticks me off. Because you'll see this in the modern versions. Will say, if you're angry at your brother, and then it just stops there. But I'm going to show you that.
Yeah, because it's deadly, actually, right?
Well, to have righteous anger against someone because they cause you to be angry is not sin. But to be angry at someone for no reason is sin. To basically be wrathful with your brother or sister without a cause. That's how the King James phrase it. Angry with your brother.
How about because someone shares a story with you, right? And they are they get angry because that person shared a story, but yet there's always, they say, two sides to a story. Hear the matter out clearly. If you're causing your brother to hate or be angry at something he wasn't present at, then you cause him to possibly stumble,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I'm always a fan of hearing two sides before deciding the matter. Proverbs talks about he who decides a matter before hearing the entire matter, it's foolish and folly to him. This is why when you look at the Matthew 18 meeting between people, both people have to be present, because the point is with judgment, you're supposed to be hearing both sides of the story. So when someone's not physically there, you're not even supposed to have a Matthew 18 meeting if you don't have two parties there. That's the reason for that. And you can basically it's basically condemnation. I'm pretty sure people are more familiar with this secular phrase, condemnation before investigation is the height of ignorance. So, we're to test things out, make sure, find out the truth before we make a decision. And that's why whenever something happens in the fellowship where one side there's a problem with a brother or sister has something against another brother or sister, I always try to get the whole story before making a decision. I always try to make I always try to find out the whole story, because that's what even Deuteronomy 13 says to do. It says inquire about the matter. It doesn't say to ask only one side. It says inquire about it. That means fully seek it out, okay, before you make a decision. So that's what we're supposed to be doing righteously in an assembly. That's how we handle problems or offenses. But going back to what you brought up about the lying tongues, that's a big thing. I think as a society, we got to start just being a lot more guarded on our tongue, profanity wise too. I would say, unfortunately, us as a culture, profanity is a big thing. And I know there's some brothers and sisters out there that think profanity is not breaking Torah, because they'll claim that there's no Torah command that says to not speak profane words. But when you look at the Brit Hadashah, constantly Paul's talking about it. So if we're taking the whole Bible as his word, then we got to realize that not every sin is mentioned in the first 5 books. Okay. So in essence, not to refrain from profanity is not adding to the Torah. I know some people look at it as that. It's not adding to the Torah, because then you're accusing Paul of adding to the Torah. Paul talks about it constantly. And the fact is that guarding your mouth is all over his word. The book of Proverbs talks about guarding your mouth constantly. It might not verbatimly talk about profanity in specifics, but it talks about other ways you're supposed to guard your tongue. So, I mean, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together with that. But anyway, so I think that as a people, as Yahuwah's people, we really do need to start guarding our tongue better. And we need to, I'm really speaking on myself, don't be as presumptuous as we sometimes can be. I know I'm very guilty of this. So I thank you, sister, for bringing that up. Go ahead, Mom.
I just want to make one
thing.
point about the guarding your tongue. There's a very good reason why we need to do that. Because what we show other people, they are going to judge us by what they see. And believers that are, witnessing to people, believe me, they are going to judge us twice as hard. And you just I learned this early at my job. Image means everything. Whatever you're perceived as doing, that's what people are going to be convinced that you're doing. So, we come out with a lot of lousy language, even though it might not be, taking the name or anything, but a person's going to say, oh, gee, they're supposed to be a believer. Listen to their mouth, and it just gives a very wrong image that we don't want to get.
Yeah, I think for Paul to talk about it as much as he talks about it in the New Testament, somehow it was given as a commandment. I don't think Paul's going to be talking about it that often to where it's not a mandatory doctrine that we need to uphold. So anyway, you can actually find certain instances where Proverbs is hinting to that concept, but like I said, you'll never find it literally being spoken about. And I think that's a bigger problem with the body right now, the body of Messiah, is that we're kind of getting into these Hebrews movement where we're getting extremely dogmatic that if it's not written in scripture, it's not a sin.
Yeah.
And I really want to do a study with our fellowship in the future to show how that can be very dangerous to hold to that. Because guess what? Just on the general topic of abortion is not talked about in the Torah. It's not spoken against in the Torah. So if you hold to a theology that it has to be written black and white for it to be a sin for me, then you might as well say abortion's okay then. I'm using a general example on how that theology is flawed. I'm using a general example because nowhere in the Bible does it say thou shalt not, kill a baby. Okay. But we know it's wrong. We know not to murder. Okay. So am I adding to Torah by saying we should not commit abortion? No. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So I think we all need to analyze some of the stuff like that, some of these traditional thinking that we're getting from the Hebrew roots movement and stuff like that. So anyway, thank you guys for bearing with us. I know we kind of went on some rabbit trails, but I think a couple of these were necessary to actually go through to explain. So have a great rest of your day, brothers and sisters. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. And Yahuwah willing, Yahusha willing, we'll see you next